The Hall of Fame represents greatness, and greatness is on full display with the newest class of Hall of Famers. She was one of the most accomplished women's basketball players to step onto the court.
Rebecca Lobo inside!
Their dedication and contributions off the court were unmatched, and their legendary play on the court transcends generations. With careers filled with championships and accolades, you can't deny the genius of these coaches, and few could deny T-Mac from attacking the rim.
Here comes McCready. Oh, he just sucked the gravity right out of the building.
It's time to celebrate the next class of greatness. This is the 2017 Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame Enshrinement Ceremony. From Symphony Hall in Springfield, Massachusetts, please welcome your host for the 2017 Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame Enshrinement Ceremony, Ahmad Rashad.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Symphony Hall and to the birthplace of basketball, Springfield, Massachusetts. Tonight we enshrine the newest members of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, the class of 2017. This eclectic group we're about to celebrate may come from diverse backgrounds, but each of these honorees has taken an extraordinary journey. There are no shortcuts. True greatness requires determination, dedication, and an unwavering commitment. With passion for the game and unquenchable thirst to compete at the highest level, every one of these hardwood heroes has paid the tolls to travel the road that ends here in Springfield. And now, they are about to become members of the Ultimate Team Hall of Famers. Once again, I see the room is packed with giants of the game. I see my man Calvin Murphy. Now, technically, Calvin is not a giant. He was listed at 5'9", and that was on a good day, but he could flat out really play the game. And a lot of people might not know that Calvin was also a national champion baton twirler. He was also an amateur boxer. That is why I won't be telling any more baton twirling jokes. Now, Lenny Wilkins is in the Symphony Hall once again. Lenny has been enshrined into the Hall as a player, as a head coach, as an assistant coach with the fabled 1992 Dream Team, making him the only three-time enshrinee. Also here is Larry Bird, one of the best to ever wear the Boston Celtics uniform. Also one of the greatest players of all time, Larry Legend, with a great, great nickname. Also, Isaiah Thomas is here, also known as Zeke. So, I believe Isaiah Thomas is the only current Hall of Famer who's still playing in the NBA. Earl the Pearl Monroe is in the house. He had so many nicknames. He was also called Black Jesus. He was called Einstein for all the moves he invented. His nicknames are so great, they should have their own wing in the Hall of Fame. We've got a special evening ahead of us, so let's get to it. The Naismith Coaching Circle is an 8-foot bronze sculpture of the game's inventor that was unveiled on the plaza at the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2015. It was created to honor the first coach, Dr. James Naismith, and to pay tribute to the core values he taught: teamwork, sportsmanship, physical fitness, leadership, and integrity. The granite base was engraved with the names and inspirational quotes from some of the game's best coaches. Those selections spoke volumes about the coaching style and philosophies. For an example, Steve Alford picked a Bible verse. Another example, John Calipari, who quoted himself. And all of us that know him are not surprised. On the left side, just below Naismith's right foot, is where you can find the name of tonight's first enshrinee, Bill Self. Next to that, is an expression that Bill used to hear his father say while he was growing up in Oklahoma: "Don't worry about the mules, just load the wagon." That advice has served him very well.
Collins driving, almost lost the handle. Chalmers for the tie. Got it! A Kansas comeback for the history books. Rock Chalk Championship.
Bill Self, he's a great coach. He's a winner. Somebody that's won at pretty much every program that he's been at.
Bill Self was a four-year letterman at Oklahoma State University who would follow his dreams to reach the pinnacle of success in 2008. Self's first chance at a head coaching job came at Oral Roberts, where he turned around the program while earning an invitation to the postseason. He'd also take Tulsa to the NCAA tournament 2 times in his 3 seasons with the Hurricanes. And Self would win a Big Ten title with the Fighting Illini before landing the top job at Kansas.
Some of those places were not basketball powers, but they got better after he got there. Illinois, they got better. Oral Roberts, they got better. Kansas has been good for a long time. He took them to another level.
In Lawrence, the 3-time Coach of the Year has racked up over 400 wins and 13 consecutive Big 12 championships. One of only 3 coaches ever to take 3 different schools to the Elite 8. Bill Self has led the Jayhawks to a pair of Final Four appearances and a national title.
He's really known for developing players, and I give him a lot of credit because if he hadn't pushed me, I don't think I would be here.
He's pushed the academic side, he's pushed doing things the right way. He's coached elite players that have gone on to be successful in the NBA. 13 conference championships in 13 years is one of the most amazing accomplishments anybody can have. He's a quality coach as far as you can find.
Welcoming Bill to the Hall of Fame is my main man, Larry Brown. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Self.
Good evening. Wow. First of all, congratulations to the entire class of 2017. You all have had remarkable careers, and it's truly an honor for me to be recognized with you. I also want to acknowledge everybody in this room that I grew up idolizing, players and coaches that have been role models, and it's certainly very humbling to be in your presence tonight. When I received the call from the president and CEO of the Hall, John DeLeva, that I was going to be inducted, I was literally driving to work, getting ready to pull into the parking garage at Allen Fieldhouse. I knew I'd lose reception if I went into the garage, so I kept going straight, and I turned right at the stop sign onto Naismith Drive. And it was at that particular time that John informed me that I was going to be a part of this year's class. Getting that call, driving down Naismith Drive, the street in which I office, seems so surreal to me. There are a lot of people here I want to thank, none more important than my mother and father, Bill and Margaret. Thank you so much for being such great role models for my sister Shelley and myself. Mom, for being the rock of the family, and Dad, for always being my hero and for all the life lessons you taught us. I never wanted to disappoint my parents. As Ahmad already said, my dad used to tell me all the time, son, don't worry about the mules, just load the wagon. Don't worry about things you can't control. Just do your job, and if you do your job well, things will work out. Shelly, my sister, thank you for always having my back. Back even in college at OSU, she literally punched a guy in a local bar for talking trash on my game. I also want to thank Cindy, my beautiful wife of 29 years. Being a coach's wife isn't easy, and it takes on many challenges, but she has been with me through every step of this journey and has been so supportive and sacrificed so much for me to chase my dream. She's raised 2 terrific kids. Lauren and her husband, Hayden, are living in Dallas and are going to make me a first-time grandpa in December. And Tyler, who just finished his eligibility with us, is presently working with the San Antonio Spurs. I know it's tough being the coach's kid and attending the same college where he coaches. Both of you could not have handled it with more class, and your mother and I are so proud and love you both so much. I also have other family members here, along with my high school coach, high school teammates, college buddies, fans, and so many not here who have helped raise and support me. To Larry Brown, I haven't forgot about you, Coach, my presenter. I had a chance at age 22 to work and study under one of the most innovative minds our sport has ever known. And I tried so hard to emulate you, Coach, in how I coached. Thank you for everything. Thank you for giving me my first opportunity. I also want to thank Coach Leonard Hamilton for hiring me at Oklahoma State. I learned so much watching how he worked on a daily basis, basically building a program from scratch. Then, of course, Eddie Sutton, who can't be here due to health reasons. It was so special watching him galvanize the community at Oklahoma State. I, like so many, feel Coach Sutton should be in this hall, and hopefully someday will be. When I was recruited to Oklahoma State, they wanted me so bad that they did not even assign a scholarship player to show me around. R.C. Buford, who's now the GM of the Spurs, was a walk-on. He hosted me, and I fell in love with the place. Upon graduation, I became a graduate assistant at Kansas. 1 year there with Coach Brown, we go 35-4. And we had a guy named Danny Manning that wasn't bad. And I'm thinking, this is a good gig. I think I could do this for a living. So I go from a Final Four team back to my alma mater, where our best player was a walk-on. But we recruited well and got better, and I was so proud to be a small part of that rebuilding process. Then I got my first head job at Oral Roberts. We lost 18 games in a row during our first 2 seasons. On the baseline in the Mabee Center where we played, the following words were painted on the court: expect a miracle. We were so bad, it should have read, it's going to take a miracle. But those same players basically flipped it, and we won 31 of our last 38. From there, we went across town to Tulsa and had 3 great years. My second year was my first NCAA tournament appearance. And in the second round, our opponent was #1 seed Duke. And if we were just 42 points better that night, we would have won that game. But we did learn what it takes to play against the big boys and develop the blueprint on how to compete at that level. We had an opportunity to go to the University of Illinois in Champaign right after that. After 3 successful seasons and coaching some absolute studs, the table was set for them to be great, and they were. We would not have left Illinois unless Kansas called. Kansas, a place where the game's inventor, Dr. James Naismith, was your first coach, followed by Dr. Fogg Allen, the father of basketball coaching. A university where Adolph Rupp, Ralph Miller, John McClendon, Dean Smith, Clyde Lavella, JoJo White, Lynette Woodard, and the incomparable Wilt Chamberlain all attended. I am incredibly proud to be the 5th head coach in KU history to join the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. James Naismith, Fogg Allen, Larry Brown, Roy Williams, and me. What is wrong with that picture right there? It always hasn't been perfect in Lawrence. We've had some tough losses, but we've pretty much been a model of consistency, winning the Big 12 13 years in a row and a national championship when Mario made a huge shot in 2008. We are very proud of the accomplishments of our teams and our players individually. One reason why we've been successful is because I've not had good jobs, but great jobs. I've had the right administrators, the right fan base, the right support staff, and I'm so appreciative of you all. Most of the time, and you guys would agree, head coaches get way too much credit when things are going well, and that's certainly been the case with us. But the group of men that have been doing the lion's share of the work are my assistants. We have many assistant coaches here tonight. I hope you guys understand the role you played in making tonight possible. Thank you so much for your friendship, your loyalty, your trust, your work habits, and for basically putting up with me and offsetting my weaknesses with your strengths. We've also been so blessed to coach the first pick in the draft, lottery picks, All-Americans, National Players of the Year, guys that went on to play in the NBA and play professionally overseas, teachers, doctors, lawyers, ministers, etc. I'm so happy that each of you are here, and the ones that couldn't make it, trust me, you are not forgotten. We all want our players to learn from us. We all want to be a positive example for them. We always work to never fail them. But I can tell you there is no way these players have learned as much from me as what I have taken from them. Would all my assistants and ex-players please stand and be recognized at this time? We got a bunch. These are my guys. I really believe our job as coaches is not to let our players settle, not to ever let them be less of what they can be on and off the court. And I am so proud to be part of this profession, and I know the longer you coach, the more you realize just how much you don't know, and I enjoy the daily challenge of trying to put this puzzle together. The Lord has blessed me and my family beyond measure. There is no way an average player from Oklahoma would be standing before you tonight if his handprint wasn't all over my life. I will never take this honor for granted, and I will be more humbled now than ever occupying an office on Naismith Drive. Thank you very much.
So wow, it's very impressive, that group back there. Good thing I didn't try to introduce all you guys. We'd have been here for 2 days. Great group, Coach. Now, occasionally there are players who can stir the imagination through tales so outrageous a reputation is enhanced, even if those claims are met with a bit of skepticism. Now, take the case of a certain hero from the heartland. Listed at 6'8" and 218 pounds of muscle, George McGinnis of Indianapolis was a Parade Magazine High School All-American in both football and basketball. They say George once cut to the basket so hard that his shoe exploded. I can't speak to the shoe business directly, but it's undeniable that George McGinnis scored 2,075 points and grabbed 1,638 rebounds in high school, breaking the Indiana State records held by a guy by the name of Oscar Robertson. And by the way, those numbers still stand today. And that was only the beginning.
In a time defined by freedom of expression, when professional basketball was celebrated for its fashion and finesse, George McGinnis played with purpose and power.
George McGinnis wants to take it all the way.
George McGinnis was a physical force.
Here he comes, George McGinnis for Indiana.
George was built like Superman.
McGinnis is so big.
Like a locomotive.
McGinnis.
Big, fierce, fast, strong.
I used to be very small, if you can believe that.
George McGinnis was already larger than life in the state of Indiana by the time he debuted for the ABA's Pacers. He had led Washington High School in Indianapolis to an undefeated season and a state championship. In his lone season at Indiana University, McGinnis the Magnificent topped the Big Ten in both scoring and rebounding.
Who's your favorite player on the Pacers?
George McGinnis.
What do you like about Big George?
Everything.
But there was one part of his repertoire that became a signature move.
One-hand jumper.
McGinnis with the one-hander.
He got it out here. He got it way up here.
Very unusual shot, very effective one.
It wasn't the prettiest thing you've ever seen, but it sure went in the basket a lot.
He handles that ball like a peanut.
That was his own shot. What he could do with that basketball was special.
He could post up. He could break you down one-on-one. He could make the three ball. Add to it a great passer. He was sensational.
George McGinnis was an all-star in 3 of his 4 seasons in the ABA and was named Most Valuable Player in the league in 1975. But his measure of success was not linked to any individual acclaim.
When I go out on the court, there's only one thing that can really turn me on, and that's winning.
McGinnis and the Pacers won a pair of championships in his first 2 seasons in the league, helping Indiana to cement its legacy as the ABA's most successful team.
He was the best player on the Pacer team. There ain't no question. George was the focal point.
McGinnis was the league's top scorer while leading the Pacers to the 1975 ABA Finals. Following that campaign, and in search of new challenges, George signed with the Philadelphia 76ers of the NBA.
He immediately transformed Philadelphia into a winner. They went from cellar dwellers to a playoff team. Then when I joined the next year, we had the best record in the league and went to the finals.
He continued to be an unstoppable force in the new league, leaving countless overmatched defenders in his wake. While stats, accomplishments, and accolades unquestionably put him in elite company, it was his overpowering style of play that made George McGinnis the prototype of the modern NBA forward.
Until LeBron came along, I never saw another guy that had George's physical abilities on a basketball court.
I've seen everything that's come down the pike in the 60-plus years. We're sitting here talking about one of the greatest power forwards that ever played the game.
Welcoming George to the Hall of Fame are Bobby Slick Leonard, Reggie Miller, Spencer Haywood, Artis Gilmore, and Rick Barry.
Thank you so much. Coach, that was a way to bring a crowd, man. That was unbelievable. Great job. First of all, I want to say good evening, and I want to thank God for every blessing he's given me, especially the one this evening. I would like to thank the Hall of Fame and the Veterans Committee for this honor. I'd also like to congratulate the 2017 inductees. I'm honored to be a member of their team. My story begins with my mother and father, Bernie and Willie McGinnis. They migrated to Indiana from Hoppersville, Alabama, looking for a better opportunity for their family. That turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me because It's hard growing up in Indiana and not falling in love with the game of basketball. The year was 1956. I was 6 years old. Two events would change my life forever. We had our first television set, and I got to watch the nation's first all-black team compete for Indiana High School State Championship. That night, I was introduced to a young man who became not only my hero, but for every kid in our community's hero. His name was Oscar Palmer Robinson, the Big O. He played for Chrysostom High School, and he won the state championship for the second time in 1956. The 1956 team was the first team to go undefeated and win a championship since that tournament began in 1911. And I can't tell you the pride we felt in our community. The next day was a Sunday. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The next day was a Sunday, and it seems as though every boy in our neighborhood was out shooting buckets. We all wanted to be like the Big O. Oscar couldn't be here tonight, but he inspired me as well as many others in our state to play this game, and I want to thank him for that. 13 years later, in 1969, I was part of the second team in Indiana high school history to go undefeated and win a state championship, George Washington High School. 3 guys on my high school team played professional ball. Steve Downing, who went on to IU and became an All-American and was the first draft pick of the Boston Celtics. Wayne Pack, who's here tonight, played for the Pacers and in Italy, were part of our starting lineup along with a kid named Jim Arnold and Louis Day. I was very fortunate to be named Mr. Basketball that year in 1969, and we fielded an all-star team of our best seniors from Indiana against a team from Kentucky. It's a game that's been going on for a lot of years. We played 2 games, one in Indiana and one in Kentucky. The first game, I had 23 points and 14 rebounds. I didn't think that was too bad, but one of the Kentucky players was not very impressed with the game I had or me. So I didn't want to leave a bad impression on him, so the next week I had 53 points and 30 rebounds. I rode back to Indianapolis with my parents, and my dad, man, he came looking for a better life. He was such a hard-working guy. He didn't get to see a lot of my games. He worked construction during the day and a factory during the night. But that night, he told me how proud he was of me, one of the few times he ever told me that. And that was one of the best feelings I ever had. But tragically, 9 days later, he was killed in a construction accident. That All-Star game was the last game he saw me play. So maybe it was God's will that I had the game that I did. I'm so glad that I did have that game. I was honored to attend the great University of Indiana and to play for Coach Lou Watson. May he rest in peace. I became the first sophomore in Big Ten history to lead the league in scoring and rebounding. I enjoyed my time there, but our family was struggling financially. My mother and I had a chance to sign with the Indiana Pacers. I did. I took all of my $15,000 signing bonus and put it down on a down payment on my mother's house that she still lives in to this day. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. And so that leads me to you, Spencer Haywood. You were a big reason why I was able to do that. As a junior in high school, we watched you lead that 1968 Olympic team, and it was incredible. We had never seen anything like you, my man. And with you, and after your sophomore year of college, after that incredible performance at the Olympics, you spent your sophomore year of college, and then you joined the Denver Rockets in the old ABA. 2 years later, I followed your path, and I signed with the Indiana Pacers after my sophomore year. You opened the door not only for me, but for many others, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your trailblazing ways. You're a good man. Thank you. Yes. And what can I say about this next guy? He's been like a father to me ever since I lost my father, Coach Bobby Slick Leonard. We just call him Slick. I couldn't have picked a better team to have gone to than the Pacers to start off my professional career. There were 3 future Hall of Famers waiting on me, and Mel Daniels and Roger Brown, and may they rest in peace, and you, Slick. And other great players, Freddie Lewis, Bob Nedelicki, Billy Knight, Darnell, Dr. Dunk Hillman, and Billy, and that was it, I guess. Well, Slick, you've been like a father figure to me, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate, man, everything you've done for me. You have been my best friend. I can come and talk to you when during good times and bad times. You've always given me good information. I love you for that. Thank you. You know, Slick always had a sense of community. He instilled it in all of his players. So I'll never forget my rookie year. The first meeting we had, he called the meeting and he said, "Look, I don't care how good any of you think you are, and how good you might be." He said, "But you're nothing until you do something for somebody else." I've never forgotten that. And like my real father, Slick, you taught all of us to be tough, but you also taught us to be compassionate. And I appreciate you doing that. Thank you. Rick Barry. First game he played against the Pacers, he got 51. We called him the professor because, you know, there wasn't anything that he couldn't do. We won an ABA championship in my rookie season. Rick got hurt. We played Rick in the finals, and Rick got hurt, fortunately for us, and we were able to win that series. But just being on the same court with you, Rick, was such an honor. You were such an incredible player, and you did everything extremely well. Even if I fouled you, you didn't miss any shots, for crying out loud. It was sickening to have to try and guard this guy. He gave you a lesson in playing the forward position. And I don't think he realizes how much influence he had on the game and me, and how much it meant to me. I certainly appreciate you being here, Rick, and standing here. I appreciate all the support that you've given me throughout the years. Thank you. The big A, Artis Gilmore. We won an ABA championship. Yeah. We won an ABA championship in my second year, the next year, and then we played the Kentucky Colonels in the finals of that championship series. And I was fortunate to be named MVP. But Artis was as dominant a player as we had in our league, and probably as nice a guy as we've had in our league. So 2 years later, we met him again in the finals, but this time the Colonels won, and we were beaten, and Artis was voted MVP. I'm so proud, Artis, to be able to share with you this honor, and I'll be ever thankful that I didn't have to guard you. Yeah. My 1975 journey took me to the city of brotherly love. Me and my wife really grew up there and fell in love with the city. I played 3 seasons. We made the playoffs each of the 3 seasons I was there. I was an all-star 2 of the 3 seasons. And again, I was an all-star in Denver after I was traded, but suffered an Achilles tear, and I was really never the same player after that. But I was able to finish my career with the Pacers back in Indianapolis, where it all began for me. And that brings me to Sir Reggie Miller. Reggie, man, I don't know what to, you bring so much heart and passion to the game. You were such a winner. Although Roger, Mel, and Slick and I are part of the Pacers Foundation, you raised the roof, you blew it off, man. You've done more for the Pacer organization than any player that's ever played or wore that uniform. And I can't tell you how honored I am to have you standing with me tonight. You're absolutely the best. You walk around Indianapolis, and now half the boys are either named Reggie or Peyton. It's unbelievable. September 10th, 1977, I married my wife. I've been knowing her ever since I was 5 years old. We went to the same elementary school, same junior high, same high school. She's been my best friend. I can't tell you, Linda, how much I love you and I appreciate you every single day. I would also like to thank my mother, Willie, who's been a rock in my life. She's 90 years old about 5 days ago. She couldn't make the trip. My sister, Bonnie, who's at home having a hospital operation on her back, which I'm going to get when I get back home. And my son, Tony, and his wife, Tina. My grandson, Dane, and other family members who took the time to come up here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I also like to thank, finally, the Indiana Pacer organization, who have been so supportive of me and have been incredibly generous to me. So, again, thank you. I also like to thank my 6th and 7th grade coach, Cliff Robinson. Cliff was a student trainer on all those great Addicts teams in the early 50s, 51, 52. He ended up being the first black trainer in an NFL in 1957 with the Chicago Bears. My 8th grade coach, Joe Mason, may he rest in peace. My high school coach, Jerry Oliver, Bill Green, who has won more state championships than any coach in Indiana high school history, 6 of them. And I would also like to thank all the fans who supported me throughout the years, but most of all, thank you, basketball. Thank you.
Bad man, boy. You're a bad man. That's how you knock it out the park. That's how you knock it out the park. That's how you knock it out the park.
So we got a couple things figured out. Remember I started off by Dr. J, him and his friend. The friend called him doctor and he called the other guy professor. Did you just hear that? Rick Barry. So it must have been Julius and Rick Barry that grew up together and called each other the professor and the doctor. I also want to know, George, the 53-point game, is that the one where the shoe exploded? Trying to get to the end of that story. Anyway, there have been 6 coaches in NCAA Division I history with at least 800 wins, who have taken at least 7 teams to the Final Four and who have led at least 5 of those squads to the NCAA title game. The list includes some of the most successful and some of the most revered coaches of all time: Dean Smith, Pat Summitt, Mike Krzyzewski, Gino Auriemma, and Roy Williams. Tonight, the 6th member of that oh-so-selective club takes her rightful place among those coaching legends when Muffet McGraw is enshrined in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame.
With 765 wins and counting, as head coach of the Notre Dame women's basketball team, Ann McGraw, better known as Muffet, has become synonymous with South Bend, Indiana. But her coaching style is more reminiscent of another part of the country.
Coach McGraw is a Philly girl.
She says how she feels. She's not shy about it.
We gotta get in shape, huh?
In Philadelphia, we don't know everything there is to know, but we act like we do. And Muffet's exactly the same way. However, there comes a time when you gotta back it up.
And Muffet McGraw has been doing just that for nearly 40 years as a coach. She started as an assistant for St. Joe's before landing the head job at Lehigh. Then, it was off to Notre Dame, where she's been winning ever since.
A walking legend, in my opinion. Male or female, one of the best basketball minds that we have.
She's just brilliant. Whether it's her preparation, motivation, compassion, she's a full package.
Muffet's been ahead of the curve in a lot of ways. The freedom that they play with and the confidence that Muffet instills in her players. Her style is the toughest matchup for us, year in and year out.
Under McGraw, Notre Dame has made 22 consecutive NCAA tournament appearances, 24 in total, including 15 trips to the Sweet 16, 7 Final Fours, and a national championship in 2001.
The national championship is really just a significant chapter in her amazing coaching career.
Muffet McGraw has etched her name in the record books. But perhaps more impactful is the profound effect she's had on the women she's coached.
It's something about her that makes you want to move a mountain for her. I believe it's how much she cares about her players.
She has deeply impacted the landscape of college women's basketball and I think sports in general.
Irish, 1, 2, 3.
Welcoming Muffet to the Hall of Fame is Ann Myers. Ladies and gentlemen, Muffet McGraw.
Thank you. I'm not sure which was worse, the hairstyles or the outfits. I wasn't nervous enough, but I've got to stand up here with that husky behind me. Congratulations to all the other honorees in the 2017 class, and to all of you who came before us. Thank you to the Hall for bestowing on me this incredible honor. And thanks to Annie for standing up here with me. I've always admired you and what you've done for the game. As a coach, I spend most of my time preparing for the next game. So standing up here tonight has me in the unusual position of looking back. But what a ride it's been. One thing that I'm sure of is that there isn't anything in life we accomplish on our own. And there is a long list of people who I have to thank for getting me here. Life is all about making good choices, and I've been fortunate to make some good ones. The first good decision I made was going to St. Joe's. I made some lifelong friends, and I'm so happy that my former teammates and friends and Don DeJulia, our athletic director, are here to share this moment with me. We've come a long way since our playing days, and so has women's basketball. I love this game, and I never could have imagined when I started coaching at Archbishop Carroll High School in 1977 that it would take me to so many places I never would have seen and given me experiences that have changed my life. I am grateful for Title IX and the opportunities that it's given to women like me who dreamed of a future where we could do the same job as a man, where playing a game could lead to a 40-year career, but I never dreamed my future would bring me here. I'm thankful for the opportunity to coach so many amazing women, to teach them that it was good for women to compete and it was okay for women to want to be the best. It means a lot to me to have two players from my very first class at Notre Dame here with me tonight, Sarah Leapshire, Karen Robinson-Keys, and her husband, Kevin, who built the foundation of our program and have supported me the last 30 years. And also one of the most decorated players in Notre Dame women's basketball history, national champion and future Hall of Famer, Ruth Riley, is here with us tonight. One of my biggest rewards in coaching is to have so many former players that I'm now blessed to call friends. Most of the things I've learned about life, I learned on a basketball court. Teamwork, accountability, and what you can accomplish with hard work and a relentless pursuit of your goals. But I learned how to handle adversity by watching my mom. She lost a son, she won a battle against cancer, and then lost my dad, but she kept going. She taught me so many things that have shaped who I am today. She's an amazing woman, and she's my hero. Thanks, Mom. My family has been supportive of me throughout my career. My brothers, Tom, Joe, and Michael, although it wasn't until I got to Notre Dame that they actually told their friends I was a basketball coach. My sisters, Kathy, Patty, and Peg, have been with me every step of the way. Thanks for trying to get me to relax on game day, for helping me enjoy the victories, and to Patty for being the only one brave enough to call me after a loss. Thanks for your unconditional love and support. To my son, Murphy, it's not easy being a working mom, and you learned how to deal with it without making me feel guilty. When people ask me what I'm most proud of in my life, I say you. I'm so happy you found Francesca to share your life with. I've learned a lot from the people I worked with and worked for. My mentor and first boss, Jim Foster, taught me a lot. I hope I can do the same for my staff. I've been blessed to work with so many talented assistant coaches, Tish and Kevin, Coquise, Angie, and Sip, and my current staff, the best in the country, Carol Owens, Beth Cunningham, and Neil Ivey. We have kind of a joke around the office, and I say, you know, in the Bible, it says that Moses died leaning on his staff, and I'm going to do the same. I share this award with all of you because I wouldn't be here without the dedication and commitment that you make to our program every day. Thanks for your loyalty and your passion for the game, and for getting me to enjoy the journey because of the fun we've had on and off the court. Thanks to all the people at Lehigh. You learn a lot about what you don't know your first year as a head coach. To all the players and administrators that helped me find my way, especially Liz Feely, thank you. To my athletic directors, to Gene Corrigan for hiring me, and 2 days after I got to campus, retiring. I'm sure it was not anything that I said. Followed by Dick Rosenthal, Kevin White, and my current boss, Jack Swarbrick, is here with us tonight. Thanks for all you've done for me and for our program. You've always been there to celebrate the big wins and for trying, always unsuccessfully, to pick me up after a loss. It's the people that make the place, and I guess that's why Notre Dame has always felt like home to me. To the people who make our program run smoothly, Jill Bodensteiner, Charla, Erica, Katie, and Ann. To everyone at Notre Dame, from first President Monk Malloy to current President Father Jenkins and Digger, the Joyce Center crew, and my friends at home who form a support group for me after games, thank you. To the best fans and the best band in the land, thanks for making Notre Dame a tough place to play. And finally, to my husband, Matt. You've been with me since the beginning, and I know I couldn't have done it without you. I feel like you should be up here with me. We came to South Bend with a hope and a prayer that things would work out, and neither of us could have imagined that we would end up here. From our early days when you drove the team vans, ran the halftime show, filmed the games, whatever we needed done, you stepped in to do it. We've come a long way. Coming to Notre Dame was the second best decision I've ever made. The first was marrying you. Thanks for being a great dad, a great husband, and my best friend. Thank you.
If you have not been to the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, you're missing an opportunity to marvel at the historical artifacts on display. And who knows, if you visit the hall this year, you might even get a peek at the charred remains of the sneaker that exploded off the foot of George McGinnis, which we still haven't got to the bottom of. But the Hall of Fame is not just a museum that houses the history of the sport. In fact, every year, the hall hands out several prestigious awards. Last night at the 2017 Family Reunion and Awards Dinner, the Hall of Fame honored the 3 recipients of the Manny Jackson Basketball's Human Spirit Award, which recognizes annually those who've used the game as a platform for positive change in the community. The first recipient was Bob Hurley Sr., a community leader and a legendary basketball coach at St. Anthony's in Jersey City that won 4 national titles. Hurley has guided, mentored, and coached students, student-athletes, faculty, and parents for over 40 years. In turn, every St. Anthony's graduate in the past 21 years has been accepted to college. Also recognized was Nancy Lieberman, the youngest basketball player in Olympic history to win a medal and the first woman to ever coach a men's professional basketball team. Since its inception, Nancy Lieberman Charities has served over 3 million children through a variety of programs, including college scholarships, laptop and school supply giveaways, and basketball court and playground installations. The final recipient of the Human Spirit Award is the 3-time NBA champion Dwayne Wade, who established the Wade's World Foundation in 2003. The nonprofit charity provides opportunities that enable children to overcome challenges, to excel academically, and to reach their maximum potential while focusing on the initiatives of literacy, health, and fatherhood. Please let's have a large round of applause for the winners of the Manny Jackson Human Spirit Award. 19th century abolitionist Henry Ward Beecher said, "We should not judge people by their peak of excellence, but by the distance they have traveled from the point where they started." If that's the case, the journey taken by Manny Jackson is one of the most epic. The United States was still in the grips of the Great Depression when Manny was born in a boxcar in Ilmo, Missouri. He would live there with as many as 12 family members until he was 3, when they were forced to flee because of a flood. Those humble beginnings could not predict Manny Jackson's trailblazing career between the lines and in the boardroom.
The impact of Manny Jackson's arrival on the campus of the University of Illinois in 1956 was immediate. The color barrier to the men's basketball program had been shattered. Jackson would not stop there. He'd also become the first African-American captain in the school's history.
There's no doubt about the fact that him breaking that barrier was very, very significant, not only to Manny, but to the university.
2 years after graduation, Manny once again pursued his love of the game in a stint with the Harlem Globetrotters. But Jackson told Trotters owner Abe Saperstein that he'd only join if he was taught the business side of the operation too. That decision would prove to be prescient. When Jackson purchased the Globetrotters in 1993, he became the first African-American majority owner of a major professional sports team.
For Manny to own a major sports franchise, that really has opened the door for people to follow in his footsteps. So Manny was a pioneer.
Not only did Manny Jackson restore luster to the Globetrotters' name, but he also reinvigorated their worldwide fan base with his focus on philanthropy and a commitment to community service.
He took a brand that had been suffering and a lot of people thought maybe was on its last legs and totally rejuvenated it.
In 2007, the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame established the Manny Jackson Human Spirit Award to recognize those like Manny who had used the game as a platform for positive change.
I want to thank Manny Jackson, who has been a role model for a lot of us behind him in his shadows for his business acumen and his philanthropic work around the globe.
Manny is a guy who gives back, and he wanted to acknowledge people who were also making a big impact on the world through basketball, and what better name to have it associated with than Manny.
Welcoming Manny to the Hall of Fame are Jerry Colangelo, Lynette Woodard, and Russ Granick. Ladies and gentlemen, Manny Jackson.
Hey, this is pretty good. You know, I've been around the Hall of Fame here for just about 20 years, and I've been on the other side. I was chairman of the Hall of Fame. Good to see you, man. It's different when you're being an administrative person than when you're being honored, and I can feel it. It's a great feeling. My involvement with the Hall in 2002 took me to the point where we brought the Harlem Globetrotters through, and that was interesting. The team was deserving, and fans around the world joined me and said, at long last, the Harlem Globetrotters are in the Hall of Fame. And there's no doubt they were worthy. The team founder and owner, for example, Abe Saperstein, happened to be my mentor, too. He kept the NBA alive during his years. And if you don't know this, Abe actually played preliminary games before the NBA games in order to get attendance to come see the NBA games. I know this because I was there. The thing that disturbed me most is that when the NBA celebrated its 50th anniversary, there was no mention of the Harlem Globetrotters and the role it played in desegregation of the league, nor was it mentioned that the Globetrotters supported the league when it was just getting started. And I go on to say that as leaders of all kind, We can't allow this kind of revisionist history and behavior to continue. You got to give credit where credit's due. Okay? If you follow the history of professional basketball, and you know the history, you'll know that the Harlem Globetrotters were a competitive dynasty for many years. You'll also know that the New York Rens were a competitive dynasty for many years. But you go to a classroom, Isaiah, kids don't know that. You walk into an NBA locker room, they don't talk about that. And I'm saying it's time for us to tell the truth about the history of basketball and where it's come from. You know, the good and positive news is, though, that millions were introduced to the game worldwide, young and old, by the Harlem Globetrotters. It served us all well. I mean, there was a first team that combined sports, entertainment, and competition. That fusion has made it interesting for all of us. It built a dynamic, multi-billion-dollar industry. I think it's also worth mentioning, and I've been a part of this, I looked at it firsthand, the decline of Jim Crow in sports. And I can tell you that I continue to see nothing but really great results. And what occurs to me when I see this, if basketball can be a showcase for non-discrimination, for integration, for performance-based promotions, why can't we do that in every part of our society? It's got to be an example for every kid looking at it. I'll conclude this by saying I'm concerned about our country. I don't think we'll endure if we don't cast the indifference, the hatred, and the bigotry away. As I move to the next steps in my life, I formed this Humanities Center in Southern Illinois for the purpose of getting people to talk and get a sense of urgency of how important it is for us to get along, communicate with each other, and do as we do in basketball. You pull together as a team. You try to win, in our case, life or saving the planet by being one species, the human species. Now, let me go on to say that the only way you do this is through research and education. And you have to have your mind open to want to be educated. And I will thank the Hall of Fame donors, the Hall of Fame leadership, particularly Jerry Colangelo. In a very short time, I've seen the Hall of Fame change tremendously under Jerry's leadership. It's the amount of humanities being talked about, the recognition of pioneers, the language of the Hall has changed so greatly. It is a well-operating organization. If it were listed on the Wall Street Journal, it'd be a buy right now. And John DeLeva, Jerry Colangelo get credit for that transition. Now, I spoke with Mark Emmert about 3 weeks ago. He's president of the NC2A. And we were talking about this subject, and he made a couple comments. He said, first of all, we should be aware of the platform that athletes have, and coaches have, and owners have. And we shouldn't waste this platform. The second thing he said is that when you have the platform, take the time to do something effective about our society. And maybe it has to be taught, or we have to comment on it, but do something effective about our society. We can't take it for granted, because this game will use you for 4 or 5 years and spit you out. Make it worthwhile. Now, as leadership and leaders and role models, I respect some good leaders. And the first one is David Stern. I don't know if he's here tonight, but David Stern. I think the transition economically has been led exclusively by David Stern. He made it happen. I would also say that Russ Cranick, I don't know if, Russ, you know this, but you adopted me 25 years ago. You don't remember this, do you? When Jerry introduced, I should explain this, shouldn't I? When Jerry introduced me to Russ Cranick, when I was trying to get an NBA franchise, I was frightened to walk into the NBA office. And Jerry handed me through to David and then to Russ. The reception is a model way to handle an occasion like that. And our friendship has been steadfast since then. I find it to be honest, talking about Russ Cranick, to be honest, trustworthy, and very much concerned about doing the right things. And that's the kind of leadership that forms an example for folks. And I appreciate it, Russ. Thank you. I've gotten to know Adam Silver and his deputy, Mark Tatum. I told Mark this today. You guys have a bias for action and a bias for fairness. With that kind of behavior, the NBA's got to last and last and last because the leadership makes a difference. And you set an example by your behavior. Now, the last thing I want to say is Jerry Colangelo. I can't say enough about Jerry, and all of you know him. He's an icon as a leader in basketball, an icon as a leader in sport, an icon and a leader in life. I've known Jerry since I was 16, 17 years old. And I say this, and Jerry gets concerned when I say this all the time. I'm pretty good at politics. I know my way around the world. If I had to pick one person that I'd volunteer to say, run this country, or run any country, any problem, Jerry, my friend, I love you to death. You'd be at the top of my list. You are tremendous as a leader and a role model. In 2012, I wrote a book called Boxcar to Boardroom. I had no idea that I'd be standing here one day. In fact, when I wrote the book Boxcar, I did it for my daughter. My daughters, I don't have to know what happened in my life. And the boardrooms had me thinking, how can a person come from a railroad boxcar with 13 other people end up overseeing billion-dollar corporations? And I began to appreciate only in America. It's a great country. I wanted my kids to know this and know that process. I had the blessing of playing at the University of Illinois, one of the greatest schools in the world, the University of Illinois. I had the good fortune to play for two of the greatest basketball teams in the world, the Harlem Globetrotters, and I played briefly for a makeup team, the New York Tuck Tapers. And I thought, for these blessings, I've got to make the best of it. While playing with the Harlem Globetrotters, I traveled to 105 countries. Imagine this, from the railroad boxcar, I'm walking the streets of London with Prince Charles. We're giving conferences to bankers. Come from that boxcar with 13 people, I find myself in South Africa, spending time with Nelson Mandela and quoting him in speeches as I traveled around. I go with Hazel O'Leary to China, and we're in Beijing talking about district heating, how to conserve energy. And I go on and say, how does a young person of color from a boxcar who thinks of himself as a ball player end up influencing our society? And it tells me we all are a part of a very powerful game, and my life has been very storybook through all of this. And my dad read that I was on 6 Fortune 500 boards of directors. He said, you know, you're like the Black Forrest Gump. And I said, thanks a lot, Dad. But he went on to say, he said, you know, people from every walk of life have helped my son accomplish a lot. And I wonder tonight what he's thinking as he listens to me stand up here and stumble through. But I feel good about it. I feel good about my dad. I feel good about the life I've lived. I feel good about the contributions that have been made. And I feel good to the fact that I've been associated with this great game of basketball. Now, I'll tell you one last incident before I stop here. I was a 17-year-old college sophomore. And Jerry, we played Butler University our first game. I scored 26 points. Everybody was cheering. Illinois had won. I came back to the locker room, and Howie Brown, one of the most unbelievable people you'll meet, all he said was, you should be ashamed of yourself. You'll never make it to the University of Illinois, and you'll never make it in life. And I said, what could he be talking about? I thought to myself. He said, you scored 26 points. I didn't see you throw the ball to anybody else. You won't make it. And he walked away. But I say, God bless Howie Brown, because I remember that night, and I've never forgotten it. And it occurred to me then at an early age, if I was going to succeed, I had to make organizations better, and I had to make other people better. And that's stayed with me for all these years. I have a guest, special guest I'd like to introduce tonight that has won the Humanitarian Award a few times, and is one of my special people in my heart, and that's Lynette Wooder. And Lynette, none of us know the path she's had to take, being on the Harlem Globetrotters and traveling as she has, and to go through what you've been through and still maintain the balance the way you have. She's a true humanitarian. I have a few people I want to comment on tonight. My sister Marjorie's here. She's one of my favorite people and has never missed an event that I've had in, I would say 40, 50 years, but she says she's not that old. She's been around 40, 50 years. But she's been everywhere I've been. My brother Steve, where are you, Steve? Well, Steve, good brother Steve. His wife Sandy, one of the smartest, most dependable and hardworking people I know. And I've got two nephews, Braden and Bronson. They're going to be all-stars. There you go. You're going to be all-stars in life and in sports. One question I have, we have some Harlem Globetrotters here tonight. Are they still in the audience? Still here? Stand up, guys. Thank you. Thank you. 200 to 300 games a year in typically 50 to 60 countries. These gentlemen are representing this country as ambassadors of goodwill. And I still appreciate it. I did it for 15 years. I think about you. The shot, they talk about you. They talk about you. Shane, you're the greatest. And I don't know the best athlete out there, but I tell you, there's some good athletes. If anybody better than these guys, I want to see them. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay. My soon-to-be Academy Award-winning son-in-law, Dan Richardson, I should thank you for giving me 2 great-grandchildren. And 3 weeks ago, we were standing in a hospital waiting on the second child to be born. Thank you. I have a fellow Illini, Rick Hill, who's with me tonight, probably the smartest guy I know. Takes care of me as a friend, former chairman of Novellis. He knows stuff. My Duke friend is here, Kyle Carpenter. And years of the Honeywell, when I acquired the company, he was my assistant in making this happen. We did it together, Kyle Carpenter. Chris Clauser, who's president of Burger King, Northwest Airline, 15 or 20 boards of directors, paid my first payroll at the Harlem Globetrotters, and together we secured millions of dollars in sponsorships. And Chris, I appreciate you coming up here tonight to be with us from the U.S. tennis thing in New York. I appreciate you being here. In fact, Chris was the guy who came up with the idea that said we should make the Harlem Globetrotters a nonprofit, and all the funds go to charitable organizations around the world. And Chris, I appreciate you being here. I can honestly say I probably wouldn't be here tonight if it were not for Jim Venick, for Nancy Lieberman, for Jerry Colangelo, and Sherman Brown. These people keep my engine blowing and keep me running. These are all guests. And I'll close tonight with a statement made by Nelson Mandela. Mandela gave a speech one night, and he said, I want to thank everybody in this audience for helping me, giving me the blessing to help people, to care about people, and never stop helping others. And he said, I also want to identify my best friend, Manny Jackson. I want to thank him for doing the same thing. What I want to do tonight is close by saying I appreciate all the help I've gotten. I think the work that Hall of Fame is doing and the work it's done by recognizing me tonight, I greatly appreciate. And God bless all of you. Thank you.
An eye for talent is a talent in its own right. A measurable is nothing more than numbers on a page. Statistics can be twisted. Chemistry is only an exact science in the lab. What makes the heart of an athlete and what drives them to compete is a mystery to most. At his core, Jerry Krause was a scout with an incredible eye for talent. When he was given the ultimate opportunity to put his instincts and experiences to work, Krause assembled one of the greatest dynasties in basketball history.
We think this is going to be a very good basketball team. We stay healthy, we think it's going to be an excellent team.
And the Chicago Bulls have won their first ever NBA championship.
Before Jerry Krause assembled a dynasty in Chicago, he began his NBA career as a scout. He developed a reputation for having an eye for talent when he contributed to the Baltimore Bullets, selecting Hall of Famer Earl Monroe. In 1985, the Chicago native returned home to take on a new challenge when he was named general manager of the Bulls.
Jerry Krause was a great general manager. I mean, he inherited Michael Jordan, but that's all he inherited. He found Phil Jackson coaching in the Continental Basketball Association. He found Scottie Pippen. He put all the pieces around Michael.
The reason I was hired was he did not follow the crowd. He followed his own mindset. He slid into arenas. He bought his own ticket and sit where people didn't know where he was at. We made sure every rock was overturned and looked at.
He's brilliant to me in terms of being able to look at talent and evaluate it. He had a great eye for putting the right chemistry together.
They have become 13th in NBA history to win 3 in a row.
But Jerry was not content after the third title. With an eye on the future of the game, he would retool the team and transform the Bulls into one of the most dominant squads of all time.
He just had a way of advanced thinking. He always looked forward to find new people, to add new pieces, and to keep the team going.
The players that won the second three-peat were all different except for Scottie and Michael.
Tony Kukoc, Rodman, Ron Harper, athletic, long-armed, multiple position players. Jerry was kind of ahead of his time because that's how the NBA is played now. His imprint on those Bulls teams is undeniable. Jerry was the architect.
If you had to give credit to one man, the guy that put them all here, Jerry Krause.
In the historic Bulls run, the two-time NBA Executive of the Year pulled all of the right strings. The 1996 team won a then-record 72 games, and 2 years later, they capped off another era of greatness with a second three-peat.
Chicago is world champions once more.
I'm so proud of these players and the staff. And this is for the fans back in Chicago, the greatest sports fans in the world.
What he was able to do as a GM was, it was pretty magnificent. He helped assemble one of the greatest teams to ever play on the NBA court.
Speaking on behalf of the late Jerry Krause in this recorded message is his widow, Thelma Krause.
On behalf of our family, Stacy and Scott, David and Michelle, Colette, Josh, Mia, and Riley, we would like to thank the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame for the great honor you have bestowed on Jerry. He would be so pleased and proud to be enshrined in Springfield. Jerry had always hoped that this day would come and said that if it did, it would be for his grandchildren. Jerry loved sports. They were his passion. Though he was a tireless worker, he said he never worked a day in his life, equating his job to being a kid in a candy store. He was one of the fortunate people who got paid for doing what he would do for free. Jerry Reinsdorf, I'm sure this information would have been more helpful to you during contract negotiations. Throughout his career, Jerry worked for several basketball teams. His main goal always was to have the team succeed. He was the ultimate company man and was fiercely loyal. Jerry Reinsdorf gave him an opportunity to do the job he had always dreamed of, and we owe a great deal to Mr. Reinsdorf. Jerry was a man with a plan, and his championship vision resulted in one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history. I like to think that Jerry knows that this significant recognition is happening and is sharing this with his buddies who went before him. Thank you again for this great honor.
Presenting Jerry Krause for enshrinement is Jerry Reinsdorf. Ladies and gentlemen, representing Jerry Krause is Thelma Krause. Congratulations. At this time, we'd like to take a moment and remember a treasured member of the Hall of Fame family who passed away within the last year. John Kundla was a titan in the earliest days of the NBA. He built the Minneapolis Lakers into a dynasty and was the first head coach in league history to win 3 consecutive championships. Coach Kundla lived to the ripe old age of 101 and will be remembered as one of the all-time greats. John was enshrined in the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1995. Nicknames can be a little tricky. Sometimes they have intricate backstories with the details known by just a close friend or two. That's how we got to Dr. J, for instance. Some nicknames are given at an early age and just stick, like Magic Johnson. I think he was in the league about 10 years before I knew his real name was Irvin. Nicknames can be as simple as the color of someone's hair, like Red Holtzman, or the lack of hair, like Curly Neal. But the best nicknames are almost always the most descriptive ones. A great nickname makes it clear that you are dealing with someone special. Tom Jernstedt has a great nickname. He's affectionately called the father of the Final Four.
Tom Jernstedt joined the NCAA in 1972 and served the organization for the next 38 years. He earned the moniker Father of the Final Four through his determined efforts to shape the tournament into the spectacle that it is today.
The confetti is going to fall for North Carolina.
Tom Jernstedt had a vision for what he thought the NCAA basketball tournament should be and worked tirelessly to make that happen.
Jernstedt also was a key member of USA Basketball, serving as vice president and president. Most notably, Tom played a significant part in making professionals eligible to compete in the Olympics, which led to the formation of the legendary Dream Team.
Tom's role with USA Basketball spans 30 years, and he really was pivotal in the significant experiences that this organization went through.
Tom's involvement with the NCAA tournament, Tom's involvement with USA Basketball, he's been there at the grassroots, and he's been there at the shining moments. He's one of our leaders.
I must add this part. Tom was also a quarterback at our alma mater, Oregon, so go Ducks. Welcoming Tom to the Hall of Fame are Gino Auriemma and Ann Myers. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Jernstedt.
Thank you, Annie, an Olympic basketball player and pioneer in women's basketball at all levels.
Thank you, Gino. We all know Gino, a two-time Olympic champion, as a legendary women's basketball coach at UConn, where his teams have set records that may never be broken. And my third presenter, John Havlicek, is unfortunately unable to be with us this evening. I'd like to sincerely congratulate my fellow inductees and their families. I'm thrilled for you, and I'm honored to be here with you. Many thanks to members of my extended family for their continuing love and support. My wife, Chris, my children, Derek and his wife, Jen, JC and Cole, my siblings and their spouses, brother Rich and his wife, Jeannie, Missy and her husband, Rick, Susie and her husband, Dick, and my grandchildren, Avery and Jake. Others have supported me in very important ways throughout my career, and I'd like to thank them. At the NCAA, Walter Byers, Dick Schultz, Ced Dempsey, Gene Corrigan, and Miles Brand. At USA Basketball, Jim Tooley, Sean Ford, Carol Callan, and Craig Miller. At the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Jim Haney and Reggie Minton. And at the Hall of Fame, Jerry Colangelo, John DeLeva, Fran Judkins, and Paul Lambert. And at the NBA, Adam Silver, Mark Tatum, Kim Bahuni, Russ Granick, and David Stern. The NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee is a group I worked with most closely during my 38 years with the NCAA. The Basketball Committee is composed of 10 outstanding administrators, men and women, from NCAA member institutions and conferences. I served as the NCAA's administrative liaison to the Basketball Committee. Dave Gavitt, C.M. Newton, Wayne Duke, Jim Delaney, Bob Bowlesby, Jim Host are examples of the kind of talented administrators who served on the Basketball Committee or made significant contributions. In 1973, the first tournament after I joined the NCAA, there were 25 teams. The Basketball Committee had the vision to recommend expanding the tournament bracket from 32 to 48 to 64 and eventually 68 teams over the years to recognize the ever-expanding pool of talent and interest in the game in every part of the country. Although I have many special memories, I want to make special note of the 1979 NCAA championship game, which featured Michigan State's Magic Johnson and Indiana State's Larry Bird. Larry's with us this evening. The television rating for that game was 24.1, a record that still stands today. It's hard to believe that game was played in a campus arena at the University of Utah with a crowd of 15,410. When it became clear that the popularity of the Final Four had created an intense demand for tickets, I went to a basketball game at the Superdome in New Orleans and climbed up to the last row of the upper deck. I started asking fans, "Are you disappointed? Is this a good experience for you?" To a person, each one said, "I knew it was going to be up high, but I'd rather be here than outside." Those fans convinced me that holding the Final Four in dome stadiums would allow thousands of devoted basketball fans to have that experience. It has been an honor to be a part of the game that helps unify us nationally and internationally. I grew up in Carlton, Oregon, a town of 1,054, not much greater than the crowd here tonight. My parents always told me to follow my dreams. Being on this stage in front of you is a bigger dream than anything my parents or I could ever have imagined. Thank you.
So, you know what's really strange that we were talking earlier and trying to figure out how long we've known each other, and we figured it out. We've known each other for 49 years, which can't be possible because I'm only 39. Nearly 1 million student athletes now play high school basketball in the United States each year. Teaching them the core values that Dr. Naismith first set out to share is the primary responsibility of a basketball coach. While the overwhelming majority agree on the fundamentals of the game, how that message is delivered and the results that they achieve can vary. Robert Hughes, who rose to prominence in Fort Worth, Texas, would probably fall into the category of a no-nonsense coach. He was fond of telling his players, if you can't work hard and you put out the best, you probably need to go home to your mama. I'm guessing you can't say that anymore. Anyway, Coach Hughes may have been blunt and direct, but the results were spectacular.
In a part of the country perhaps best known for Friday Night Lights, Robert Hughes was a revelation who carved out a career of unsurpassed success on the basketball courts in and around Fort Worth, Texas. In 1958, Coach Hughes began his career at I.M. Terrell High School. Over the course of the next decade, he'd guide Terrell to 3 Prairie View Interscholastic League championships. Hughes moved on to Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, where he won a pair of titles and built his Wildcats into one of the top programs in the country. Coach Robert Hughes retired in 2005, but not before he had amassed 1,333 victories, more wins than any other high school basketball coach in history. The 6 decades he spent on the sidelines remain a testament to his love for his players and for the game.
Speaking in this recorded message is Robert Hughes.
Just like to give thanks to the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's a place where we would all like to be, but some of us never make it. Fortunately, I was at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. Coming out of Texas Southern, where we played the game of speed, speed, and more speed, and where we always figured we will work and work and work till the other team just dropped by the wayside. And I had that ability to touch players and students. If you're a worker, you work the best you can every day. You practice every day, and you go to class every day, and you carry yourself with dignity every day. I enjoyed the 47 years I had as a high school coach, and to the Hall of Fame, I would just like to say thank you, and thank you again.
Welcoming Robert to the Hall of Fame is Cheryl Swoops. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Hughes. Last night, the Hall also celebrated the winners of the Kurt Gowdy Media Awards and the John W. Bunn Lifetime Achievement Award. The Gowdy Award winner for electronic media was a colorful reporter who prowled NBA sidelines for more than a quarter of a century for the Turner television networks and could even bring a smile to the face of Greg Popovich. Of course, I'm talking about the late, great Craig Sager. The Gowdy Award winner for print media began his career while still in college and covered his hometown New York Knicks in the NBA beat at the New York Post, the Daily News, and the New York Times, where the decorated columnist and author was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, Harvey Ayrton. The John W. Bunn Lifetime Achievement Award is the highest honor bestowed by the Hall of Fame outside of enshrinement. This year, 2 men were recognized for their contributions to the game in this prestigious fashion. For nearly 4 decades, the late Michael Goldberg guided the National Basketball Coaches Association. He was a respected leader, mentor, and friend to the members of the NBA community and championed the coaches of the NBCA with tireless dedication, passion, heart, and humor. Donald D. Rowe built Worcester Academy into a prep school powerhouse while serving as the basketball coach, the baseball coach, and the athletic director. From there, he took the reins at the University of Connecticut, where he found more success as a basketball coach. As an administrator and fundraiser, D helped transform University of Connecticut into one of the most dominant basketball programs in the nation. Please give a round of applause to all of this year's winners. In the fall of 1979, there was quite a buzz in the city of Boston when the Celtics training camp opened and optimism was in the air. Larry Bird of Indiana State, who had finished second in the Division I scoring, was there, as was a slightly less heralded player who had finished third in scoring and was a fourth-round pick out of Seton Hall by the name of Nick Gallas. Now, when Nick sprained an ankle badly in the preseason, his destiny would be changed. The next stop on his basketball journey would take him to Greece, where Gallas soared to unprecedented heights. Acquiring Larry Bird would become one of the greatest feathers in Red Auerbach's cap, but Red also acknowledged that letting Nick Gallas go was the single greatest mistake in his Hall of Fame career.
I'm Nick Gallas. I attend Seton Hall University and my major is physical education.
Nikos Gallas was born in Union City, New Jersey to Greek immigrant parents. After high school, he played collegiately at Seton Hall for Coach Bill Raftery.
When he was a high school senior, he wasn't heavily recruited. He's got that little bit of a choir boy look when he was in school, but boy, when the game started, he had that kind of killer mentality.
By the time he reached his senior season, he had proven himself as an all-around threat. After a spectacular year, Nick was drafted by the Boston Celtics, but an injury in training camp would steer him back to his ancestral roots, starting his pro career in Greece.
He was a great scorer. When the coaches would explain him, they would say like, oh, he's like a bouncy ball. He just leaps and he shoots and it's very hard to guard him.
He'd get in the cracks and he'd hang against big guys and shoot floaters, pull up and shoot a jump shot in your face. He was unique, and every once in a while you have a small, very athletic player that can do that.
A gifted scorer, Gallas would become the all-time leader in Greek league history while guiding his team to 8 championships and 7 Greek Cups.
He would take over the game and he was unstoppable. Exciting to watch.
He also led the Greek national team to its first ever European Championship gold medal in 1987, while winning tournament MVP, and holds all-time scoring records in EuroLeague and in FIBA World Cup play.
He just elevated Greek basketball up to European top status. He's a national hero.
One of the best European players I ever played.
They called him a god. For everybody back then, Nikos Gallas was the Greek god of basketball.
Nick, to this day, is the #1 athlete of all time. This is the Michael Jordan or Larry Bird in Greece.
Welcoming Nick to the Hall of Fame is Bob McAdoo. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Gallas.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to say that it's a great honor to be here tonight. Being inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame is a childhood dream that just came true. I would like to start by thanking the man presenting me today, Bob McAdoo. I chose Bob because not only is he one of the greatest players to ever play the game, because I think he knows me very well from our battles during his days with Tracer Milan. I also want to thank my friends who followed me here tonight, some of who I grew up together in Union City, New Jersey, and they're like brothers to me. Thanks, guys, for following me and supporting me throughout my high school and college career. Playing at Seton Hall, I could have never imagined that I would be playing overseas in Greece, my parents' homeland. And because my dream, like any basketball players, was to play in the NBA. The truth is, I was drafted by the Boston Celtics, the same year the great Larry Bird was. But I also had many offers from Greece, which I never had really visited until then. I didn't even know that basketball existed in Greece at this time. And coming from a poor family, the offers were very generous. Although Coach Bill Fitch and the late Red Auerbach wanted me to stay, I had already made my decision, a decision that I will never regret. As soon as I landed in Greece, I fell in love with the country and with my people. When Greece won the European Championship in 1987 against Russia, a whole nation ran into the streets to celebrate. From that time on, basketball became Greece's national sport. And since then, it's considered to be a powerhouse in European basketball. Since that day, there isn't a playground or a house without a hoop or a ball. And I'm sure that Dr. Naismith would be proud of this. Playing in Europe, I had the privilege to meet with and play against some of the greatest players from so many different countries around the world, and I'm very grateful for this. In the end, it's not about championships or professional or personal awards. Speaking for myself, it's about something more important. And here is a small example. One day I'm walking down the street in my hometown, Thessaloniki, and a lady I didn't know stops me. At first I thought she was going to ask for an autograph or a picture as usual. But then she hugs me and she calls me Nikos, Nikos, Nikos. That's how they say Nick in Greek. Let me thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've given me the greatest gift of all. You saved my son. And she explained to me that he was an addict until he found a meaning in his life, basketball. I believe that this is the greatest gift that an athlete can offer to society. Thank you. At this time, I would like to thank my high school coaches, Sam DiPiano and Bill McKeever, and my college coach, Bill Raftery, who believed in me. All my teammates at Seton Hall and on the Greek national team and in my Aries basketball club, and everyone who was involved in my basketball career. And of course, I want to thank the Naismith Hall of Fame committee for selecting me. My wife, Eleni, my daughter, Stella, and I are very proud and respectful of this special moment. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The expression a Renaissance man describes someone who has acquired profound knowledge or proficiency in more than one field. I've been called a Renaissance man on many occasions, mainly by myself. It also fits Zachariah Clayton perfectly. Considered one of the all-time best from the Black Fives era, Zach Clayton also happened to play for the legendary New York Renaissance for more than a decade. Zach was not only a hoops hero, he also started as the first baseman in the Negro Leagues. Upon his retirement from basketball, Zach became a firefighter, rising to the rank of lieutenant with the Philadelphia Fire Department. Clayton was also an accomplished boxing referee whose 36-year career was highlighted when he was a third man in the ring for the Rumble in the Jungle between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. A Renaissance man by any measure, tonight Zach Clayton is a Hall of Famer.
It is indisputable that Zach Clayton is one of the best players from the early part of the 20th century. Long considered one of the most gifted athletes from the city of brotherly love, Zach began his professional career playing for a variety of squads in Philadelphia. The ambidextrous Clayton was a combo guard before it had a name. A deft shooter and a tenacious defender, he would tour the country with a number of teams, including the most famous of the era, the Harlem Globetrotters. In 1935, Clayton signed on with the New York Wrens and became a fixture on that legendary squad.
Zach Clayton and the Wrens exemplified the excellence of professional basketball. They played the game at the highest level for the longest amount of time.
In 1939, Clayton and the Wrens captured the inaugural World Championship of Professional Basketball title. 4 years later, he would win a second title, this time with the Washington Bears. A fierce and skilled competitor, Zach Clayton was one of the finest guards in the game when professional basketball was still in its infancy.
It's important that we can learn about our history of our sport through the lives of the great stars. People like Zach Clayton belong in the Hall of Fame because he contributed to what the game is now.
Speaking on behalf of the late Zach Clayton, and this recorded message is his great niece, Lauren Myers.
A guard best known for his excellent shooting, a born ball player, dead-eye Zach, a natural passer who had a tremendous floor game. This is how writers, teammates, and fans have described Zachary Clayton. He was this larger-than-life figure who traveled the world playing basketball and showcasing his skills. He was a competitor who encouraged and supported teammates and opponents alike. But to me, he was a really tall man who was soft-spoken, loved his family, loved his German shepherds, and would give his nieces and nephews, myself included, $10 each for ice cream that only cost 35 cents. We were too young to witness his feats of athleticism. To us, he was just Uncle Zach, and we loved him. Zach played primarily in the 40s and 50s under the specter of racial segregation. Sometimes they had to sleep in cars because, as he put it, no one would open their hotels to blacks. This was just one example of the adversity he faced, but nothing would stop him and his fellow pioneers from playing a game they loved. Uncle Zach once said, "We didn't make a lot of money, but I think the Harlem Globetrotters, the Wrens, and the Bears paved the way for blacks by defeating the best white teams for the World Championships." He was aware of the impact these accomplishments would have on future generations. I was amused to find out that when he was little, he used to sneak into a gym in South Philly just to play ball. After he retired, he went back to that same gym and the Christian Street Y as a mentor where he enjoyed teaching fundamentals to kids. He would always remind you to always know the basics and practice, practice, practice. I know if Uncle Zach were here, he would be touched and tickled, working the room, flashing his smile, and having good laughs telling his stories. So on behalf of his widow, Lunette Guest Clayton, who just celebrated her 102nd birthday, on behalf of his family, we accept this award in his honor, and we say thank you for recognizing one of the trailblazers whose heart was just playing a game he would always love.
Presenting Zach Clayton for enshrinement is Earl Monroe. Ladies and gentlemen, representing Zach Clayton is Lauren Myers. I went on at great length earlier about the long journeys our enshrinees take to arrive here in Springfield. But for one of them, it's just a 20-minute drive from where she grew up. Make no mistake, however, she is so much more than a local hero. Rebecca Lobo is a cornerstone to the most successful program in women's college basketball. Her passion and her play inspired generations that would follow her when she joined the stars of her day to declare, "We got next."
While growing up in Western Massachusetts, Rebecca Lobo fell in love with the game of basketball. She would blossom into a prolific scorer at Southwick Tolland Regional High School and smash the state's record while racking up 2,740 points.
Let's go, guys, let's go!
When Lobo arrived at the University of Connecticut, their women's hoop team had been to only one Final Four and had never won the national championship. But all that was about to change.
She was the first nationally known player that we were fortunate enough to get.
Next thing you know, everybody in America is talking about University of Connecticut women and Rebecca Lobo.
Rebecca Lobo, the National Player of the Year.
Rebecca really started Husky Mania. She started that wave of passion and of winning.
In 1995, the Huskies captured the imagination of the basketball world as Rebecca Lobo led them through a dream season and a triumphant Final Four.
UConn has won the national championship, and they've done it in perfect fashion at 35-0.
Lobo was selected as a member of the United States women's national team that elevated the visibility and popularity of their game while barnstorming across the country.
Rebecca was the youngest one on the team, and I remember a young kid that was willing to do whatever it took.
The dominant and well-oiled machine would sweep through the Atlanta Olympics to claim the gold medal in front of an adoring home crowd.
The '96 gold medal team was really special, and they really inspired this whole generation of women's basketball players.
Interest in the women's game had reached a new peak. Clamoring for an opportunity to call their own, the WNBA was launched with a boost from the biggest stars of the day.
Rebecca was one of the first 3 players that we signed to the WNBA, and that really did lend a legitimacy to the league. She was a phenomenon in many ways, and so she played a key role in the surge that brought women's basketball into the prime time.
One of the main attractions of the inaugural season, Lobo was an important part of the league's initial success.
In the infancy of the WNBA, we needed to make our fans feel like they were family, and Rebecca was the perfect person for that.
Rebecca Lobo with a jumper.
And they're on their feet here at the Garden. The fans adored her. She brought life to the building every time she stepped on the court.
Left hand off the glass. What a move!
She's affected basketball in so many ways.
Nice left hand from Rebecca Lobo.
She did so much to put women's basketball on the map, to make it popular, to make it okay to wear a Lobo jersey.
Lady Liberty will carry the torch on to the WNBA championship.
After her playing days were over, Rebecca Lobo moved to the broadcast booth, where she remains a fixture of the women's game.
As a player and as a broadcaster, she's always been an advocate. She's always had passion, and she's always been a great ambassador for women's basketball.
Welcoming Rebecca to the Hall of Fame is Gino Auriemma. Ladies and gentlemen, Rebecca Lobo.
I thought you only sat on a throne. A few years ago, after I had worked a UConn game as a sideline reporter, I saw Coach Auriemma, and he said to me, Rebecca, in the future, when you interview me, can you please take off? So ever since then, that's what I've done when I've interviewed him. And when I asked him a couple months ago if he would be willing to present me tonight, I said, I promise I'll take off my heels. And he said, I'll present you, provided you let me wear your heels. We'll save that for later. I grew up 15 miles from here in Southwick, Massachusetts. My middle school coach, Len Larrabee, and my high school coach, Jim Vincent, taught me how to play. The people in that town helped raise me, and I hope they all take some amount of pride in this. The people who actually raised me and supported me and drove me to practices and sacrificed were my parents. My father is here. Dad, thank you. I love you. I started playing basketball because I wanted to be like my older brother and my older sister. I adored them and wanted to emulate them. My brother Jason played basketball at Dartmouth. He is now a judge in Connecticut. We like to say that his college career prepared him well to sit on the bench. My sister Rachel and I played together for 2 years in high school, and this was the late 80s, so we both had big hair, the exact same hairstyle as Eddie Van Halen at the time. And perhaps because of that distraction, I scored a lot of points in high school, but half of them were on assists from her. So thank you, Rachel, for being here. Now, I went to UConn because I wanted to play for Coach Auriemma and Chris Daly, and it was the best basketball decision of my life. Now when I work games, whether I'm in an arena calling a game or in studio, I get texts from Chris Daly for almost every game. And about 50% of the time, the text just says, "I just pressed mute." So CD, who is here, you can't press mute tonight. Thank you so much for the role you have had in getting me here and the role you've had in my life. My senior year at UConn was one of the most magical seasons in the history of women's college basketball. Pam, Jamel, Kara, Carla, Keisha, thanks for making that such a fun ride. Jen Rosati is here, and she is one of my best friends and best teammates. And Jen, thank you so much for being by my side for so much of my basketball career. Now, professional basketball didn't exist in the United States when I was a kid, but playing professionally was a dream of mine. When I was in the 6th grade, I wrote a letter to Red Auerbach and said, I am going to be the first girl to play for the Boston Celtics. I wasn't. But because of David Stern, Adam Silver, Val Ackerman, Renee Brown, I was able to realize that dream in the WNBA. Now I get to watch my oldest daughter light up when she talks about Breanna Stewart, or my 11-year-old beam when she puts on her Tina Charles jersey. I have 3 daughters who play basketball, so the WNBA means even more to me now than it did when I was playing in it. We watch a lot of women's basketball in our house because that's my job. And when my oldest daughter was about 5 years old, it was March Madness, so I was on the road calling a basketball game, and my husband was watching the UConn men's team. And my 5-year-old came in and looked at the TV, and she said, "Daddy, are those boys playing basketball?" And he said, "Yes, they are." And she said, "I didn't know boys played basketball too." I spent the early years of the WNBA in New York, and my Liberty teammates were special. Sue, Spoon, Kim, Coquise, thanks for your friendship and help in getting me here. When I retired from playing, I got the chance to, as my kids say, talk ball game. When ESPN hired me, I'm thankful to Pat Lowry and Tina Thornton for giving me the opportunity to do this job that I love. But no one tells you how to do it, except for everybody on Twitter. I am grateful to her 2 mentors and friends in particular, and that's Doris Burke and Holly Rowe. You are great friends who've been with me along this ride, and I thank you for being here tonight. Now, my husband and I met the old-fashioned way in a dive Irish bar in New York City. And he was and is a columnist for Sports Illustrated, and I read his columns all the time. And about 2 weeks before we met, he'd written this article in Sports Illustrated, and it had a throwaway line in it, and it said, "Much like Wilt Chamberlain, I too slept with 8,000 women last night. I was at a New York Liberty game." So that night when I met him, I said, "I know who you are. Aren't you the guy who wrote that joke about the New York Liberty?" And he blushed more than he is right now, and he said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "Well, how many games have you been to?" And he said, "None." And I said, "Well, obviously, or else you would have been sleeping with 12,000 women, because that's how many fans we average." But since then, he has been to hundreds of WNBA and women's college games, and most exciting of all, 10-year-old girls' AAU basketball games. When I found out I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I texted Steve and I said, tonight you get to sleep next to a Naismith Hall of Famer. And his response was, great, exclamation mark. Larry Bird, question mark. And Larry, yes, we know, he has to stay at least 15 feet away. My 4 kids, Siobhan, Maeve, Thomas, and Rose, I am so proud of you all, mostly for behaving tonight. It's a long night. Now, if anyone has ever coached their own kids, they know the joys of that. But there's also some big challenges. I coach my kids. And if you coach your kids, you know they don't listen to you. And my oldest daughter, for the first time about a year ago, played and got a chance to be coached by a different coach. And she was out in the driveway working on a post move. And I came over and I said, Siobhan, if you want to get the post move, you got to get low. I want, get a low dribble, get your center of gravity low, and then explode up. And she said, yeah, but what we worked on in practice, Coach D showed us the high dribble and to come to the side. I said, I know, but you're tall, and he's teaching it for a guard. You're tall, you need to get low. I want your dribble low and go up. And she kept arguing with me. No, Coach D said to do it this way. I said, Siobhan, Coach D is a 5'8" orthodontist. When I was in 3rd grade, it was the first time I got a chance to play on a basketball team. I signed up in the town of Southwick in the Park and Rec League to play. And my mom got a call, and they said, we're sorry, only 2 girls signed up, so there's not a team, and Rebecca can't play. And my mom said, no, that just means you have to let her play on the boys' team. And so she brought me down. The other girl decided not to play, and I was the only girl on the team. And my mom said to the coach, I want you to treat Rebecca the exact same way that you treat all the boys. If they run sprints, she runs sprints. If you're yelling at them, you need to yell at her. So the only exception is, if you play shirts and skins, I want her on the shirts team. No one would have appreciated this Hall of Fame honor more than my mother. I love you, Mom. And no one would have appreciated more seeing you in my heels. When you recruited me, you knew I belonged at UConn. You knew I was meant to play for you. And fortunately, I knew that too, and I followed my heart. And you have completely changed my life. And for that, I thank you. You have changed my life, and I am here tonight completely because of you. Thank you.
Much of the beauty of basketball is in its simplicity. The game is not very complicated. That is not to say that the game of basketball is easy. It is not easy, especially when played at the highest levels. But on occasion, there comes a truly gifted athlete whose skill set is so complete and who is so blessed that his brilliance seems effortless, making it look easy. Do not take such a player for granted. Do not fall into that trap, for if you do, you'd miss the genius of Tracy McGrady.
Here comes McGrady. Oh, he just shook the gravity right out of the building. He takes it up and go. Tracy McGrady did not just do that. Tracy McGrady with an incredible performance down the stretch.
With the 9th pick in the 1997 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select Tracy McGrady from Mount Zion Christian Academy.
Look out. Oh!
Tracy McGrady has the world at his fingertips.
Tracy would display flashes of brilliance while teamed in Toronto with his cousin, Vince Carter.
It's a family affair.
T-Mac wanted to be great. He wanted to dominate, and he wanted to be the king on the court.
Let's go.
Young, athletic, wanting to just destroy people. That's what it was.
These kids can fly, can't they?
His dunks were extremely explosive. Kind of lulled you to sleep. Before you knew it, he was jumping over top of you.
McGrady had improved steadily in each of his 3 seasons in Toronto. But when he returned home to Florida and signed with the Orlando Magic, Tracy would take his game to yet another level.
From the first game, I remember we played against the Wizards, and he had 30 plus. From that moment on, it was like, I'm on the map, I'm here, I'm in that conversation of one of the top players.
Got 32 points in the game.
Every time I played against him, it was like trying to solve a puzzle, try to invent schemes almost, because regular ones wouldn't work.
T-Mac was unleashed, ripping off 7 straight All-Star appearances and named to 7 consecutive All-NBA teams, while twice leading the league in scoring.
You can see glimpses of some amazing potential. And then one day, he's top 5 best players in the league.
Tracy McGrady takes it back in the lane, serves it off the glass, goes south, and it's in. Whoa!
Here's a guy at 6'9" that moved as if he was 6'3", can literally do everything. He could turn left shoulder, he can turn right shoulder, he could score from the post, he could score from the perimeter, he could facilitate, he could defend.
Ryan shot blocked by McGrady.
When you have that combination, it's extremely dangerous.
McGrady sets a franchise record 62.
When Tracy joined the Rockets, he formed a devastating partnership with Yao Ming.
He definitely had understanding of basketball, like we say, basketball IQ. You see a potential opportunity before everybody see it. That's why it made him so special.
No sequence captured McGrady's ability to put the ball in the basket, quite like when he erupted in one of the most storied comebacks in NBA history.
That game is hopeless already.
Ball game over. All we need here is the final score.
T-Mac just turned on his firepower and threw out everything he got.
McGrady cuts it to a 2-point lead. Here comes McGrady for the win. Yes!
Oh, give me 5. I don't believe it.
I do not believe this.
13 points in 33 seconds.
For all those fans that left, gosh, y'all missed a great game.
He made the game look easy while dominating.
I remember him being a skinny, scrawny kid to now be one of the greatest players who's ever played. It's pretty surreal.
He could just do it all. One of the most dominant perimeter players to ever have played in the NBA.
McGrady, 4 seconds left. Come on. What a shot by Tracy McGrady.
Welcoming Tracy to the Hall of Fame is Isaiah Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, Tracy McGrady.
Yes, yes. Man. Yes, thank you guys, appreciate it. Zeke, I don't know what you saw, brother, but back in 1997, you recognized my talent, scrawny 18-year-old coming out of high school. I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me fulfill my childhood dream by drafting me 9th overall. That meant the world to me. And the first year didn't go so well. The first half of that year didn't go so well, as you know. But you went on, became an excellent coach. You did some great things as an executive, made some great moves. But your best move, Zeke, was firing that coach my rookie year. Firing that coach my rookie year that criticized me, said I wasn't going to be in the league beyond 3 years. Was he wrong? Boy, was he wrong. Boy, was he wrong. Back in February, my wife and I were on our way to the Hall of Fame finalist press conference at this year's All-Star Weekend in New Orleans. We were on the elevator, and she kept telling me how proud of me she was and asked me if I was excited. I remained nonchalant, never really showed too much emotion, or at least not the level of emotion that she was expecting. Sensing the real truth behind what my hesitation and non-emotional demeanor was really about, she told me to repeat after her and say, I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I didn't say a word. She insisted. This time she said, look in the mirror that was on the elevator wall and repeat after me. I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, I still couldn't let those words utter from my mouth. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't because I wasn't excited or honored. However, truth be told, I didn't want to allow myself to get too excited. You see, my wife knew something about me in that elevator that I had yet to admit and say out loud. There was a reason she wanted me to look myself in that mirror and say I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And there was also a reason why I couldn't do it. In those split moments that she asked me to state out loud that I deserved to be in the Hall of Fame, I had a zillion thoughts in my mind why I didn't deserve to be it. I started thinking of all these NBA greats who had accomplished so many great things. And then I began comparing myself to them. It's way too easy to focus on what you don't have and what you didn't accomplish. But I'm grateful for those people that saw in me and believed in me, just maybe when I always didn't believe in myself. People who actually saw the man and not just the athlete. One thing I've learned in those 15 years of playing is the power of perseverance, faith, and pushing through even when the odds are against you. Even when they said you wouldn't last 3 years in the league. Even when your work ethic was criticized. And even when you come from nothing and enter into the amazing world of the NBA without a name, without a track record, and without any proof that you deserve a chance. I'm grateful for God for blessing me with amazing gift and talent and entrusting me with it. In addition, I can't leave this stage without thanking the NBA. You have sent me to places around the world I never knew existed. Just a small town kid from Auburndale, Florida, that traveled the world a few times and in my life became richer with everybody I met along the way. Thank you to Adidas. I'm proud of what we accomplished together. We sold a ridiculous amount of shoes, and we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Thank you to every basketball organization I ever played for, every coach I played for. Doc Rivers, Butch Carter, I appreciate you guys. And to the fans, both in the States and around the world, forever loyal, never stop believing in me. You gave me way more than I ever can give you. I am so grateful for all of my teammates, but I have to highlight those teammates who have impacted my life and made me a much better basketball player. Thank you, Yao Ming, Dikembe Mutombo, Grant Hill, Darryl Armstrong, Doug Christie, Vince Carter, D. Brown, Charles Oakley, Muggsy Bogues, Kevin Willis, Jermaine O'Neal, Dale Curry, and Antonio Davis. And to the realest coach I ever played for, he's not here tonight, he couldn't make it, he's back home helping some flood victims back in Houston, Coach Jeff Van Gundy. I just wish we had the opportunity to play a few more years. Johnny Davis, thank you very much for allowing me to work with you and giving me the footwork. My shooting coach in my Toronto days, Jim Thomas, Sonny, and Pam Vaccaro. Back in 1996, going to that camp, being the last guy to enter this camp, and you give me that jersey, 175. $175. Nobody had a clue who Tracy McGrady was. You gave me that platform. And I played against the best players in the world at that time. And I left that camp the #1 player in the nation. From 175 to #1. Thank you, Sonny and Pam. To my financial team, it's gonna be all right, Sonny. To my financial team, thank you guys. I made a lot of money in my playing career, and you don't care of it. I appreciate that. To my agent, Arn Tellum, Bob Myers, thank you guys. To my attorney, Tim Hoy, I appreciate you. My assistant, Elisa Grable, 20 years, thank you for organizing my life and my family's life. So all of my family, my siblings and friends, my brothers and sisters that are here, I thank you guys, I appreciate you. Mom and grandmother, 2 women that kept me out of the streets of a drug-infested neighborhood. You know, one thing my grandmother instilled in me was patience. while all the other kids were out playing, I had to leave the house in the wee hours in the morning to go fishing with you for 12 hours. Being on that lake, bonding with my grandmother taught me patience, endurance, and the ability not to sweat what I couldn't control. And you know one thing that you always did who was on that boat, whenever you wanted the beer, what was your sign? Psst, 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 psst. To my mom, always my biggest cheerleader, coming to all my games, and you was being the absolute loudest person in the gym. And even when I was a professional, you was the loudest person in the gym, and 20,000 people, I hear your voice. Thank you very much. But what you taught me is not to be that to my kids, so I appreciate that. And to my 4 beautiful kids, Layla, Lacey, Layman, Layden, remember this, your character is always much more significant than your reputation. Never forget who you are. Never forget that, and that you belong to God. You belong to God. Because who you are in secret is just as important who you are in public. Why? Because God sees both. Don't forget that. To my wife, who I've been with for 20 years, God has given me a woman that has proven to be a beautiful mother, a wonderful wife, an amazing friend, and I thank God for you every single day. I love you. Now back to that elevator story I was telling you about. Although what I couldn't do, what my wife requested me 7 months ago, and tell myself in that mirror that I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, well, on this day, I can proudly say, yes, I deserve to be here. I am truly humbled, I'm grateful, and proud to be in the class of 2017. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome all of us, because we're here. But I'd like to right now introduce you to the chairman of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, Mr. Jerry Colangelo.
We're joined on this stage by some of the best and brightest stars the game of basketball has ever known, whose careers and contributions are honored here in the Hall of Fame. And now our newest members will take their well-deserved place among this distinguished group. Bill Self, George McGinnis, Muffet McGraw, Manny Jackson, Jerry Krause, represented by Thelma Krause, Tom Jernstedt, Robert Hughes, Nick Gallis, Zach Clayton, represented by Lauren Myers, Rebecca Lobo, and Tracy McGrady. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, it is my honor to officially declare that you are hereby enshrined as the newest members of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. To the class of 2017, we say, you have accomplished, and thank you for all that you have meant to our game. Congratulations.
And that concludes the 2017 Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame Enshrinement Ceremony. It's been another wonderful evening spent celebrating basketball history here in Springfield. We'd like to thank you all for being a part of it. Good night, everybody.